I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we're VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Now, today, Tom, what do you think about reviewing the new Shabazz Palaces record?
That's what I'm here to do.
That's what we are here to do.
Yes.
You know, you with me.
Yeah.
Or you can just do it by yourself.
I mean, you can leave.
It'd probably be just as good. Let's make it. So, Shabazz Palaces, experimental hip-hop duo. This is their second record. Lese?
I don't know.
Lese Majesty? That's how I'm going to say it.
Okay.
We're from Iowa. We can't pronounce shit. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
This is their second record, as I said. Their first record came out in 2011. It was called Black Up and really got these guys a lot of critical acclaim. I don't remember if we liked it or not, but I remember it being very interesting, experimental. And
I feel like it's one that we actually underrated a bit.
I totally agree with you.
I think that we gave, as I recall, we gave it like an upper 70s, maybe an even 80s, somewhere in there. Maybe
Yeah.
I should have looked it up beforehand.
It's worth more than that.
It definitely is.
You know, in preparation for this review, as I went back and listened to it, you know, and I didn't go, you know, really in depth with it, but I really enjoyed some of the things that I heard there.
Oh yeah.
And it was important to do that because this album, Lese Majesty, is completely different in sound. And you know, Shabazz Palaces, these guys kind of alluded to that before the album was released. And I think that the first thing that you think of when you put on this record is, holy crap, they just decided to go completely, you know, out in the woods and make all of these sort of like short little ambient-based electronic beat compositions that serve as, with their typical vocals that you heard on Black Up, but then they're like heavily processed and really buried in the mix, and it just gives it this atmospheric kind of swampy vibe to all of the tracks. The other thing I want to note before I hand it off to you, Tom, is that this record is 18 tracks long. The average track length has to be around 2 minutes tops. Now, that being said, there's actually 7 movements that this record is encompassed with, and you know, and each movement is like 2 or 3 tracks. And you know, when we listen to this on Spotify, so you know, Spotify didn't have those movements, but going back and you know, reading about it and trying to have like, I don't know if that made much of an impact, but we can get into that here in a minute.
Sure, and I think that's a great kind of segue because to me, this album played like a soundtrack.
It does.
With the way the tracks flowed into each other, along with those suites, but even aside from that, just the thing as a whole, you know, they definitely set up a mood. They definitely have a mission statement that they're going for with their general sound.
Right.
But from there, it's just, to me, it's more about the actual content, the meat and bones of what's actually going on within these tracks. And,
and a little bit of cheese.
You know, I love cheese with my meat and bones. I'm going to stray away from that conversation. Forget you ever...
If you want to hang out later, let's
talk. No. Not into that. Anyway, so what I found with this album, listening to it, is that for me, it was just hard to latch onto. You know, coming off of Black Up, I knew that this was going to be some very experimental hip-hop. I didn't expect them to go Lil Wayne on us or something.
Of course
you know,
not.
so they're not going to do something like that. But I did not expect it would be that far out there. Because Black Up, while it certainly had its fair share of kind of wandering synths and ambience and mood, there still were some really thick beats grounding everything.
It had a much more organic sound to it.
Definitely.
It was much more like, I don't know what the term is, but it almost like kind of hit you in the face a little bit more.
Sure, it had some more impact.
Yeah,
things were a bit more grounded. This album is much more about the subtleties.
Yes.
I feel like there's more going on in the mix at all times, and even more. That's not to insinuate that Black Up was a very bare bones, minimalistic album. Not at all. But this even takes it a step up, and that made it a little bit difficult, especially given the fact that these are shorter track lengths. You know, there's just not a lot to really sink your teeth into. I found myself gravitating towards the tracks that took the time to establish themselves a little bit more. You know, we both picked track 9, Ishmael, probably the longest track on the album as I scan the times there, you know. Also the first track, Dawn and Luxor, and track 3, They Come in Gold, were a couple others that I liked. And I picked those tracks and looked back at them and thought, these are some of the tracks that are actually over like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Whoa, excuse me.
Whoa!
Almost swallowed my own tongue there, I think. Anyway, to continue, that's not to say that some of these in-between tracks that are, you know, maybe 40 seconds to a minute and a half or 2 minutes, anywhere in that range, it doesn't mean they don't have some good sounds. They do. I actually, some of those tracks, like when they'd come on, I think, yeah, this is really neat. But then they kind of fizzle out and go into the next thing. It's not to say that they don't serve their purpose, but I will come out and say it's not particularly what I was looking for. I think a lot of people will get into that more than I do. It just comes down to opinion. But while I appreciate that from a production standpoint, you know, from just a musicianship standpoint, it's not something that I feel myself wanting to listen to again and again.
Right. To love this record is to love the artistic value or the artistic statement that it's trying to make. And you really have to have that appreciation for like the really thick, muddled production value and all of the ambience that they're trying to create there, because this is more about the idea, I feel, than the actual music itself. And moreover, because of a lot of those production techniques and the attention it draws away from the vocals, you don't have quite the emphasis on the message that, you know, typical hip hop delivers in the lyrics and in the deliveries of the vocals. And that just does not play as large of a role on this record. Now, that being said, I do feel like at times where a lot of these, you know, shorter tracks are more just like experiments. It's almost experimentation just for the sake of experimentation. And it's like that, you know, people are calling, you know, Shabazz Palaces the future of hip-hop, and this album certainly would insinuate that these guys are trying to make that statement to say this is where hip-hop is going. However, I want to I have to ask the question, why do we need to, like, determine what the future of hip-hop is going to be? Because, you know, like, in trying to, like, I feel like these guys are trying to force it to happen where it's just naturally evolving with albums like Kanye West, Yeezus, a lot of the stuff that other hip-hop artists are doing, like LP and
I totally agree with that sentiment, you know, and it's something that I think just forward-looking statements like that in music in general, they kind of miss the mark. I think they're just inflammatory and meant to raise hype because they don't really accomplish much. And, you know, I may totally be eating my own words and playing the hypocrite here because maybe we've said that on a review or two. I don't recall particularly.
Maybe on Blackout.
Maybe. But in particular, there's no point in trying to anticipate what the future will be. All we have in music is right now, and what's good and what's bad, and whatever happens in the future will be in some way based on that, but I don't really get into inflammatory statements like that.
I give these guys credit for trying to make this an original statement. That they did very well. However, I would say that they did it almost in spite of itself, right? Some of the quality of the tracks here just isn't there. One of the more fleshed out songs on this record is #Cake, and I just quite honestly thought that was like the weakest track on the album.
I didn't like it much either.
And it's a huge point on the second half of the record, and it's a single. So I don't really feel like this record had that consistency. It wasn't that fluid listen that you would really want to have. There were moments on it that I really appreciated, but as a whole, as a record, I don't feel like this really cuts it, and I was disappointed with it as a whole. Some cool ideas, not really a whole full-fledged record. And to be the future of hip-hop, it's not just about the ideas and the presentation of those ideas and the fact that you did this. It's about the mark that you can leave on the music industry as a whole, and that's something that these guys I don't think are doing here. They're not making that legendary album because there's no better statement. I mean, to take music forward and make it as original as possible, come out with this cutting edge sound, and it's a killer record that's going to stand the test of time. That's what the greats did, and that's what these guys need to do if they're going to really meet that goal some goal that they have, it seems like, or the goal that was placed upon them of changing the hip hop world of music. So, you know, that being said, I just don't feel like this cuts it. I'm going to give this a 69 out of 100.
I was going to give it a 68.
Okay, so we're going to just disregard your score and go with mine, because it's clearly superior. 69 out of 100 for Lese Majesty by Shabazz Palaces, their second record. Now, I'm sure this album has some buzz around it. I'm sure you guys, some of you guys out there disagree with us, if not vehemently disagree with us, and we hear you. And it's okay that we disagree, and it's okay that you love Shabazz Palaces. That's great. Tell us all about it at www.velocitiesofmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesofmusic. Now, as always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let Tom or myself know if there's any records out there, any at all, that you'd like to see us review on this channel. I am Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIM TV, moving music critique forward.